Hey, Zane Griggs here. So I want to explain why low-calorie diets don't work long-term and how they really can lead to more weight gain, basically, as some of you may have experienced, to a yo-yo diet where you kind of lose a little weight at first, you lose some weight, it drops down, then when you go back to eating normal, it shoots back up again, and maybe you actually gain back more than you did before, more than you had before. So if you've experienced that, hey, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you who've experienced yo-yo dieting, because this is really for you to give you a better alternative to that, or hopefully keep you from falling into that trap. Because it is a trap. It's hard on the metabolism, and it really makes losing weight much harder long term, as we've seen from, for instance, the article about some of the Biggest Loser contestants who have, after they come back off of that show, that intense time of lots of exercise and low calorie and low fat eating, their weight has jumped back up, and they're actually metabolically impaired by about 300 or 400 calories a day compared to someone else their same size. So these are the effects that can come from low calorie dieting, and you get that yo-yo effect. And the people who argue for low calorie diet, they say, oh, a calorie is a calorie. It's just thermodynamics. It's just laws of physics. You move more, eat less, you're going to burn more fat. And they use people like people who've been in a prison camp for a long period of time, who you see them, emaciated, starved to death because they've been in extreme conditions, probably overworked, labor camp, underfed, or and they were fed, it was low nutrient food. Okay, so bad quality of food, very little of it, overworked. Oh, look, they're thin, they're skinny, they're dying. Okay, they're emaciated. It's not a good plan. Okay, if you want to base your plan to reshape your body and get a healthier, thinner, fitter body on how the human body affects under those extreme, even deadly conditions, you might want to rethink it, because that's probably not really going to be a good outcome for your body in the long term. Now, you can get that initial weight loss where the fat cells shrink a little bit because you've dropped some fat. You got the fat cells shrinking, a little bit of starvation. But what happens? Two things. Your metabolism adapts. Our bodies adapt. Just like when we exercise, we adapt to exercise. Okay, we adapt so that exercise gets easier to do, right? So as you eat a low-calorie diet, your body adapts to that. So the metabolic rate, okay, the amount of calories you burn, starts to drop to match those calories. Not good. Okay, so basically, that's where the yo-yo comes in, because then you start eating normal again, or your hunger finally takes over. And you start eating like you should, or you go to an event and you fall off the wagon and you're back to eating the way you were. Well, metabolic rate has dropped to match your low-calorie diet. You start eating more again, guess what? It takes a while for this to adapt. Meanwhile, you're gaining weight. You're eating more than your metabolic rate can burn off because you've taken it down here. But the other thing that happens when you undereat like that the weight doesn't necessarily come from, or what you need, the nutrients you need, doesn't necessarily come from fat that you've stored. It starts breaking down other tissues as well. Muscle, bone for minerals, brain matter for certain fats that it needs. So you're really starting to cannibalize your body, and it's not necessarily a fat store, especially if insulin is elevated. So if you have some insulin resistance going on, or insulin is elevated because you're eating, even though it's low calorie, it's got some carbs going on. That insulin is protecting your fat stores from being burned. So so your body, since it can't get to those fat stores, is going to go to other tissues to get the nutrients it needs just to survive and feed your organs. Your organs being what make up 60 to 70% of the calories you burn in a day. That they really burn off 60 to 70% of our calories in a day. So they need nutrients, and they're going to get them however they can get them. And if your fat's being protected by your elevated insulin, your fat stores, it's going to break it down in the other places, other organs, other muscle tissue, bone to get minerals. So not a good thing. You are literally starving to death. Your body doesn't like it. And again, when you start eating normal, boom, fill those fat cells right back up again to keep this from happening again. Because it's guessing, okay, we've been through the starvation mode, we can't get enough food, when we do finally get it, refill those fat cells, especially if you're not exercising. Now, if you start exercising, as I mentioned before in a previous video, you can start converting some of those fat cells that were stem cells into muscle cells, okay, or into bone or nerve or whatever it needs. They can be redirected, but generally, you're not exercising, those fat cells are going to stay there, ready to be refilled by fat when you start eating normally again. So, and that's, again, that's where the yo-yo effect comes from, where you go down and then you come right back up. So what this thermodynamics theory doesn't really take into account, besides being undernourished, are, well, two main things: hormones and our microbiome, or the bacteria that live in and around our bodies, mostly in our gut, okay, that affect our immune system and a lot of other functions in our body. So with hormones, you've got to consider that food affects our hormones, what hormones are released, like insulin, estrogen, adrenaline, growth hormone, all these things that affect and are both fat gain, fat storage, or fat burning, fat release. So all those hormones play a role in how much fat we store and how much we burn, and that is in many ways determined by the food that we eat. So if we're eating food that's telling our bodies to keep the insulin high, that means growth hormone's low, estrogen is going to be high, adrenaline not really working too well because we keep shutting things down with food that releases, feel good serotonin. So we're cutting off the adrenaline. We're not letting adrenaline do its work on our fat stores because the fat stores are being trapped by the insulin. We're not able to burn fat. Okay, and that's information given to our bodies from the food that we eat. Our biome, the other factor, one is the population of our biome can be determined by the food that we eat. So if we're eating a lot of starchy food, we're going to have a lot different population than someone who's eating more veggies and proteins, eating more vegetables, plant-rich diet with some protein there, but it's on the low carb, low starch side. And so what that does, see, our bodies don't really recognize calories. They don't know. It doesn't know what a calorie is. A calorie is a theoretical sort of a calculation of what some food scientists think our bodies receive in energy from the food that we eat. So a certain amount of food gives your bodies this much energy. And it's a theoretical calculation, but two different people with two different biome populations can eat the same meal, same calories, same macronutrient makeup, and absorb a different amount of calories from that same meal because of the makeup of their biome. Because certain bacteria, the ones that like the starchy food that we've been eating, tend to absorb more calories or more energy from the food that we eat. So again, the two different people, the biome of the person who tends to eat more starchy carbs, okay, is going to have certain bacteria that absorb more energy. If that means they absorb more energy, they're going to be storing more energy from the same meal that someone who eats maybe a lot of salads, more steamed veggies, and not lean, but proteins and healthy fats. Okay, so what we want to do. Okay, the answer, you're saying, well, what do I do? I mean, and by low calorie diet, I'm not talking about fasting. I'm not talking about intermittent fasting or alternate day fasting. Okay, fasting is a different subject because when they do eat, they're eating adequate calories. But we can manage, okay, those hormones and telling our bodies when to burn fat, how much of this food we're holding on to, and how much fat we're storing by the type of food we eat. So we want to change the food that we're eating because a calorie really isn't a calorie. Food is information, and the different types of food, again, telling us what we need to do. So we want to stay away from, if you're trying to lose weight, the starchier carbs and move more towards veggies, proteins. Okay, so any kind of animal proteins, pea protein if you want to go that direction, eggs, whole eggs. Okay, eat the yolks. Again, lots of vegetables, steamed veggies, salads, and healthy fats. What is healthy fats? That's a big question. It's a whole nother topic, but generally speaking, stay away from fats that oxidize easily or are oxidized, like the vegetable oils that they give us to cook with, so like soybean oil, safflower oil, canola oil. Stay away from those and look for them. They're in your processed foods. Stay away from processed food and sugars, and move towards the fats that are in saturated fats, animal fats, coconut oil. In olive oil is resistant to oxidation. So these are the things we want to move towards, those non-oxidative or oxidative resistant fats that are stable, saturated fats, and stay away from the polyunsaturated PUFAs, the polyunsaturated fats that are many times, again, in our processed foods, or that are labeled with a little sunshine on them, like they're supposed to be healthy, but for cooking oils like canola, safflower, sunflower, those kind of oils. Stay away from those. So if you have any questions, I know this can be confusing because there's a lot of information out there that seems to be conflicting. Please post the question in the comments below. And if you know someone that could benefit from this or has been struggling with like a yo-yo dieting and just not sure what to do, please tag them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer the questions and help them out. Talk to you later.